easier to upload the segments. This segment, all right. This segment is all about being a galactic walk-in. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the concept of what a walk-in is, but it is when a non-earthly consciousness comes to inhabit the adult physical vehicle after its original inhabitant has left. It can leave due to like severe injury or accident or disease, like something like a near-death experience that is very similar to what I experienced, but sometimes it is consensual through a soul contract that a person might feel like they are at the end of their life or like they wish to release and they wish to allow something else to come inside of their body. So for my personal experience, it was a near-death experience. It was a biological experience that caused some neurological problems, and the original occupant died. And I liken this also to the idea of like if you have a bell, you ring a bell and it's ringing, well that is your temporal ego. You are a sense of self that is only derived from the moment. And if you stop that reverberation, if you stop that bell from ringing, and then even if you get the neurology started again, you ring the bell again, it's not the same person. It is not the same consciousness. It's not the same identity necessarily. So in my case, I, as a star consciousness, saw an opportunity to come and share some very crucial information with Earth society at a very crucial point, because I came into this body in 2001 when there was really an epic battle, isn't it always an epic battle, being waged in hyperspace reality, really for freedom on planet Earth. So Earth itself as a consciousness is making a bid for freedom, and all of the inhabitants of Earth, especially humans, are also on their journey of attempting to reach the state of freedom that is really one's birthright, but which one has been cruelly cut off due to those genetic degradations for tens of thousands of years. So basically, I talked about in the previous segment the Dark Ages, the idea, ha ha ha, that we've actually exited the Dark Ages. Like, that's very funny. Like, no, we've been in the Dark Ages since the 1100s. No, the quote-unquote Enlightenment was not very enlightening, and we're still living in the Dark Ages. I also liken it to the Flat Earth Society, that there are very many people who have what they believe in science. They don't really have a scientific mindset, because the real scientific mindset is one of non-prejudicial exploration and observation based upon experimentation. And that a lot of people believe in science, but what they're saying is, I believe in science as a belief system, not that they believe in keeping an open mind, creating experiments that will actually give you facts, because even science at higher levels has begun to recognize its own flaw, that you get what you expect. Really, there's the question of observership, and that's what we're talking about with the chakras, and that's what we're talking about with Flying Rainbow Lasagna, blending this inner and outer reality, that once you observe something on a quantum level, just you observing it changes it. Just the act of you perceiving changes reality. So if you can say science is based upon observership, but the act of observership changes reality, therefore scientists are changing the reality that they're observing. So then you understand you're not an observer, you're a partner in reality. And that is what this course is all about. Beginning to recognize and take responsibility and become a full partner in creating reality. Because if we all do that, we as little cells on the surface of a much larger organism, that much larger organism starts to get a lot happier. That right now humanity, and for the past many thousands of years, humanity has been creating from this mental deficit, from this pre-programmed approach to look at reality as a place where there is a limit, there's a lack, there's only a certain amount. Like, there's only a certain amount of gold on the surface of the earth, we're going to dig it all up and then we're going to base our currency on that. Or oil, or coal, or anything. It is based upon the idea that there's a limitation. And even in the sense of Einstein and the most recent programming that humans have received, it's the idea that there's a limitation of the speed of light. Can't go faster than the speed of light. Well, this is not actually true, that it is not the same limitation, but that is the mental quarantine that is keeping humanity stuck to the surface of the earth. And I likened it to the Dark Ages. I also likened it to the Flat Earth Society. Flat Earth Society, this was, of course, before the explorers like Magellan and circumnavigating the planet and finding the other continents. This was an attitude, a mental attitude that many quote-unquote educated people had, where they thought the Earth was flat and you lived on the top surface of the Earth and there was nothing on the other side. And if you said to them, well, hey, there's continents on the other side with people there, they would laugh at you. They'd say, that's not possible, because you would all fall off the bottom because you're on the other side, right? Well, this is analogous to, in the current times, if you talk to a quote-unquote scientific-based person and you say, I believe that there's life in other places, that there is non-earthly intelligence, that's like saying there's beings on other continents. And that science is, that cannot be, because, they're not shaped like humans with 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth and, 2 arms and legs. That really, humanity, first of all, is having difficulty recognizing intelligent species on its own planet. Species such as dolphins, whales, elephants, and even the mycelium of very, very large mushroom colonies, the interconnectedness of aspen trees. We're talking about organisms that are incredibly large, that cover square miles, but they are nonetheless organisms. Humanity is having difficulty recognizing that on its own planet, in its own dimension. So how much more difficult is it for humanity to recognize that there are plasma beings? Plasma beings live on the sun or in places that it would be traditionally considered too hot for a biological entity to live, yet they live there. There's also beings of pure energy. So I hope I haven't gone over my time or whatever. I'm doing great. Excellent. I wanted to talk about organic and inorganic beings, because this is all about combining the two aspects, combining dualities to create a new reality, and what's going on with each one of us and our chakras. The chakras are considered to be inorganic. Inorganic, we're talking about organic life means that it has a physical form and it needs to eat and respirate, and it can reproduce biologically, as opposed to inorganic life. But this is, again, we're talking about the description and the representation, or the definition according to science, of what is quote-unquote life. That beings of pure energy are still alive. These consciousness thought entities are alive. And this divine co-creative partnership that I talk about is a partnership between the non-physical thought entities that are what our chakras are made out of, and the physical form, and of course the ego identity that comes from wearing a physical form and being here in the third dimension, and combining those two things seamlessly. For many years, humanity was cut off from the higher faculties, from the higher realities, and was just, physical body with the emotions, and if you're lucky, a thin smear of cerebral cortex on top. And this also correlates with the biological evolution in the structures of neurology, that we start off with the brain stem, that is the reptilian brain, and it's based simply on simple functioning such as breathing and maintaining homeostasis and staying alive, and that's analogous to the first chakra, just I am, I exist. And on top of there is the cerebrum. This is the mammalian mind. It is the next level up, and it says there's a value to taking care of my children. There's a value to not simply fertilizing eggs and leaving them to live or die on their own, that there's actually a value to caring for the babies that I give birth to and feeding them, and also forming partnerships with groups with other mammals. And this is where we get these mammalian emotions from. And then on top of that, we have the cerebral cortex, the convoluted surface area where science recognizes human thought generally resides. Of course, that's not the only level of neurology, because then we have finer and finer levels up from there. But this whole idea that is the organism, and then there's, the angelic world, something higher. Really, what I'm talking about is reconnecting with our own higher self, our own higher tendencies. Or you could think of it as connecting with our predecessors, or connecting with our future descendants. That we are really stuck in the river of time. Like fish, we are submerged in the medium of time. However, there are entities that exist on the riverbank, or they exist in a tree up above the riverbank, and they have a much longer, more far-stretching view of the river of time, and also the way that the currents move that river and how best to surf it. And that is the beauty of the partnership. When you begin to consciously get in touch with the chakras or the inorganic beings. So, okay, for a very long time, humanity has been impinged upon by thought entities, but not necessarily recognizing or recognizing their source or making conscious perception of which thoughts one wants to be associated with and does not want to be associated with. Because your brain is a fatty idea catcher. Your brain is 60% of fat. This is the myelin sheath that coats all of your nerves to keep the energy that's inside of there. And we're talking about the energy that humans often identify with all the thoughts that are floating through their fatty idea catcher as themselves. But it is not you. You are TV is a tuner, or a radio is a tuner that perceives many different broadcasts. And your neurology is like a tuner that can perceive many different thought entities. And the challenge of each one of us is to consciously choose and use discernment to associate only with the highest and best thought entities. And we use our discernment in the sense of saying, is this thought loving? Is it unconditionally loving? Is it based in compassion? Or is it based in an emanation that is a lesser vibration? That is, because really it's very true kind of cliche when people say all there is love. This is very true. But love is the primary ray or that primary currency of the universe, but then, like electricity from a power station, it is stepped down into other emotions and other experiences. So those lower mammalian emotions, such as anger and sadness and grief and also possessiveness, as well as attraction and cuddliness and the capacity to form groups and work with others and hierarchy, all of that, those are all emanations of love, but that really love is the primary ray. Love, there's so much that I could say about the topic of unconditional love, because that's that understanding and practice is a major part of activating these higher faculties. But I wanted to get a little bit more into the magic of the flying rainbow lasagna and how this is affecting Earth right now. Because it used to be that humanity had reached this level of the indigo chakra, the brow chakra. I already explained how that's associated with Christ consciousness, but not necessarily with the Christian religion and the doctrines of the Christian religion. The level of Christ and reaching that roughly in 2,000 years ago, that had everything to do with the stage of development that the planet and planetary culture and earthly human culture had gotten to, but that there's a level of vulnerability when one has activated one's third eye, but has not yet fully connected back to source, because this is like getting your library card of the universe, and this is like meeting the librarian of the universe. So it's easy. If I just gave you a library card, I say, go on in there, read whatever you want, read whatever page you want, read it all out of order. It would not only be mind-blowing, it would give a very false presentation of reality. In order for truth to be true, it has to be presented in the right chronological order. And that means that you have to have the grand teacher to give you the proper lessons and read the proper pages in order so that it all makes sense as a cohesive whole. So you can understand the iniquities of the past 2,000 years as a person who has a library card but is reading random pages out of random books and trying to make sense of it all. We have just ended the Piscean, or age of Pisces, and we are now entering into this Aquarian age. So that level of the brow chakra, we have now ascended past there to this level of the connection to source. And this is what is different. That in the past we had this blockage that made it so that the blockage was an artificially inserted genetic blockage that happened roughly 12,000 years ago and is associated with the fall of Atlantis. It's a very long topic. I cover it extensively in Lesson 18 of Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. But on this occasion, I will tell you that humanity has been subjected to this quarantine and being blocked off from the source for a very long time. The flying rainbow lasagna is the bridge that allows one to get around that blockade. And the way that you do it is by understanding that this point down here And this point up here, these two violet points that we say, oh, but this is the singularity. As I explained extensively, there's only supposed to be one singularity. The singularity is supposed to be this little point right there at the center of that chewed up old sculpture, the point where all lines converge. It is the, parallel lines meet at infinity. And it is the singularity is the place where all of these lines meet. Isn't that breaking the rules, Aurora, to say that there are two of them? No, it does not break the rules at all, because what I have done with this creation is say this point down here is the same as this point up here, and it's jumping back and forth so quickly that it's as if it's in two places at the same time. This solves the riddle of how to get a little ant that's walking on the inside surface of this sculpture to talk with a little ant on the outside surface of this sculpture. This solves or resolves duality. The duality that we have been programmed with since the invention of the cell membrane, since the invention of the ego and the separation of self from source consciousness. This is the solution to duality. It is the way to get back to unity and to resolve this, let's say, eons-long journey of consciousness that we have taken as going away from source, becoming denser, materializing into the third dimensional plane, and now we are on the complementary journey backwards to become less dense, to raise our vibration, to ascend, to get to higher levels of consciousness, and then eventually to reconnect to source. And each one of us is like a neuron in a great brain. And each one of us must jump across the gap in the neurons, the synaptic gap. That's where the end of one dendrite meets the axon of the next nerve, and that little spark, that little chemical spark of idea has to get across there. Each one of us, our life is that jump across the synaptic gap. And when you connect to source, and when we as a planet connect back to source, the thought that is being created by this neuron is, I am God. Each one of us thinks that thought and knows it to be the truth on a deep inner level. Each one of us, I am God. And this is an entire planet that is having an awakening of divine beings. And when that happens, it is a very, very special thing. There are many visitors from many different realms that are not only observing this process happening, they are, or we are, helping to facilitate this process to happen. So the information that I bring in the sense of this visual language about chakras and about abstract geometries, even though I don't call it geometries, I call it the language of light, because geometry means earth-based measuring, and this is not just about earth. Hello, welcome. That this is about ascension, returning back to that higher state of consciousness, returning back to that connection to source, and when you do, what that spark says is, I am God. I am the divine creator. I am creating this entire reality. And bringing this lasagna, this flying rainbow lasagna, is a key concept towards humanity and earth consciousness awakening to its own divinity. So I have been taught the language of, color, line, shape, and form, and movement and texture. This from my angelic hierarchy up there, from the spirit guides who guide and sustain me through my experience here. And I teach it to people that are here so that we can be prepared for contact with higher consciousness that might not understand mouth sounds made by the moving of the fleshy lips. That communication with higher entities is more along the lines of communicating with vibration, with tones and with colors and with shapes and with forms. And that when you start to understand this language, you start to understand the flying rainbow lasagna is like a poem or a concept that is written in that language. There's a whole lifetime's worth of information, of exploration in one of these. I again invite you to visit flyingrainbowlasagna.com in order to read the full course description for the beginner course, which will begin again in September, and there will also be an advanced course all about when you begin to become more of a responsible, co-creative manifester in life, specific techniques for manifesting reality using the flying rainbow lasagna, using sun gazing, because the sun is a star and it is our local broadcaster of solar consciousness, and utilizing that divine solar energy in partnership to create a heavenly realm. That this is really the good news that I have. The flying rainbow lasagna sets you free, gives you access to all of your inner potential, and that now you have the capacity to be the artist of your own reality and to paint a beautiful heavenly reality. And when each one of us paints a beautiful heavenly reality, we begin to work together to create a beautiful earthly reality. And that is the birth of the flying rainbow lasagna. That's this painting right here. And thank you. It doesn't just stop with our planet. It proceeds even further, because this is about our connection to galactic consciousness. So you could envision that as just the starting off point of an even larger journey that involves expanded consciousness and identifying with even a broader and broader section of the cosmic consciousness. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for everyone who's been here in physical corporeal form, in the spiritual non-corporeal form, and in the virtual form. Thank you very much.